We are joined by one of our most inspirational guests ever. When Sammy Woodhouse was just 14, she met Arshid Hussain. He was 24 and preyed on her innocence, going on to sexually abuse and beat her. It was a battle to get her by police, and at one point, when caught in bed with Arshid, remember, she was just 14, it was her who was arrested and not him. Incredibly, she found the courage and conviction to see her groomers jailed, but she's still facing battles today, and Sammy Woodhouse joins us to tell us more. Hello, Sammy.
Hello.
It's lovely to see you here again. You were on Loose Women back in April, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And the last time you were here, it was to talk about Sammy's Law. If you wouldn't mind just reminding us about the work that you're trying to do with Sammy's Law.
So basically, as a child, as you've just said, I was kind of charged really for being abused, and that still today remains on my criminal record, and it does for, you know, thousands of people around the country, and it's actually affecting us and stopping us from being able to move forward and, you know, get jobs and just put it all behind us. So I'm asking really for the government to put something in place where children can't be charged, you know, whilst being groomed, which to me that's just common sense anyway, and it should be already done, and it's not. So yeah, I'm asking for a meeting with Amber Rudd in regards to that.
So you were drawn into criminal acts because of the relationship, as I say, with this man?
Yeah, I was groomed to commit crime. I mean, even at 14 years old, he taught me how to drive, so I was actually driving a vehicle, you know, on the road. Never for 1 second did I think, God, I could kill myself, someone else. I mean, I was doing all sorts. And of course, that was great for him because it was always me getting into trouble where I'm stuck with a criminal record now while he walked away.
Did you ever think that someone might have noticed that all of those criminal charges were a chink in the chain and that wasn't right?
Yeah, I think with me looking back, where I was very much treated as his equal, as his girlfriend, as a mistress. I was never treated as a victim. So in my case, it weren't necessarily as, oh, well, she's lying and making the whole thing up. They were just like, well, yeah, we know what's happening. I was, you know, caught with him on a daily basis by police. It wasn't this dirty little secret. It was so well known and everybody knew what was happening.
But yet he was convicted of grooming, of a series of offences that clearly he was controlling you. He was convicted for 35 years, which is a very, very stiff sentence. So clearly there's absolute acknowledgement that he had control over you.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I remember walking out of court and thinking, you know, this is it now. No one can call me a liar again. Nobody can blame me. And then still today, I'm having to fight. And most of the time, it's just a fight to be treated like a human being. And they're still blaming us and still saying it's our fault. You know, a child's never to blame for being raped and everything else that he did. It's shocking.
Well, you talk about these fights and battles on a daily basis, and the current one is for compensation.
Yeah.
And you got received a letter. Well, it's from the CICA, which basically body blowed you because you did not expect to get this letter. If you wouldn't mind, Sammy, just giving us a rough description of what was said.
So basically, they pretty much said it was my fault, that there was no evidence there, that he manipulated me. I knew that what he was doing,
Even
and
after
that
he's been charged, they still.
Even as well, it was found guilty on every charge connection to myself, and yeah, they were still blaming me.
But you consented to all of it. Did you got this letter just after you'd been with us last time?
Yeah, so, you know, I kind of left you guys. I was on such a high. I'd had so much, you know, support from everybody around the country. And then I got this letter, and I remember actually, because I was just so busy, I photocopied it to my support worker, and she rang me up the next day. She said, "You haven't read this, have you?" "I know you haven't, because, you know, you're really calm." And she said, "You need to sit down, you need to read it." And I just felt like somebody had kicked me in my stomach.
Well, Sammy, this is just a little extract from the letter. It said, "I am not satisfied that you were a victim of sexual assault to which you did not consent. In fact, it appears you exercised your autonomous choice to engage in sexual activity with the offender." So that gives you a bit of a synopsis of what you had to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, they even said to me, will you send more evidence to prove that your son was conceived, you know, with Arshid Hussain? Now, in court, we proved there was DNA. Even Arshid himself was admitting, yeah, he's my son, and they still wanted more evidence of
that.
that.
It seems in direct contradiction to his conviction, which was for abuse and grooming. And the other really disturbing, it's not that you are an isolated instance. I think there's nearly 700 victims of child sex abuse who have also been denied compensation. So it does seem to be an approach that's been taken by the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority.
Do you know what I don't understand, though? Because the age of consent is 16 and you were 14. It just doesn't seem to make any sense.
It's like they've said, in fact, I think this is on the letter as well, it's like they're saying, well, actually, we know the law says this and it's wrong, but we're saying, you know, and doing our own guidelines. So, yeah, they're just completely going against the law.
So they did come back to you at one point then with some sort of compensation, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority, CICA, they've said David Lidington, the Secretary of State for Justice, has said that the CICA has decided to mount an urgent re-examination of its own internal guidelines, in particular to make sure that there is no risk that a child could be disqualified from compensation because they have been groomed. So there's obviously just a mountain to climb still, isn't there, really? And are you feeling that with the work that you're trying to do now, Sammy?
Yeah, definitely. I'm doing a lot of work, especially with police at the moment. I've been doing a lot with Bedfordshire Police. Have been fantastic how they want to tackle it. I've just done some filming with South Yorkshire Police as well. And it's about working together, really, as a team. You know, I can bring certain things to the table, so can they. And, you know, that's what it's about. It's about kind of, you know, making things better for other people.
That is the incredible thing about you, though, Sammy, is because every time I've met you, you've never looked at these things as a negative and you've never let them stop you. You keep fighting for Sammy's law. I mean, the people, the very people that you felt injustice by and that weren't there for you when you needed them, you're now helping them to help other victims in your position. I just find it admirable. You're just an incredible woman.
I think if you would have said to me about 5 years ago, you know, one day you're going to be helping, you know, the police, I would have said not in a million years, and I wouldn't even be put in a room with a police officer, you know, never mind working with them. I basically kind of sit there and I tell my story and, you know, go into all the grooming process, what happened, you know, how I was treated. And I think with my story, what it shows is back then it was so negative and professionals weren't getting it right and, you know, the consequences were massive, as with now. You know, professionals got it right, I got justice, the correct support, and it's turned my life around. So I speak about the negatives as well as the positives. It's as well about, you know, treating people with that, you know, respect. And one thing I always say to professionals is, whenever you're dealing with a victim, is to treat them how you'd expect your own child to be treated, you know, about that victim approach.
And do you think you still have a long way to go? Do you really feel
Definitely, yeah. Every time I think, you know, we're really getting somewhere, something comes along and kind of knocks you back a little bit, but you just got to keep going. I know it was going to be a fight, and, you know, we've got to do it for the next generation, haven't we?
Yeah.
They need us.
Talking about the fight, there was a petition that was launched to get a fresh criminal investigation into the former council managers and councillors who were involved at the time of the Rotherham child sex abuse. And we've just actually heard this today, that South Yorkshire Police have ruled out that new investigation. They say that there's insufficient evidence to justify that. How do you feel about that?
I think it's disgusting, really. I mean, I never got my hopes up too much when it comes to the professional side of it, because there's always some kind of loophole, you know, whether it were a police officer, counsellor or whatever. So I never got my hopes up. But, you know, we're not going to just say, OK, then we're going to give up. We're going to keep fighting it. I know that there's some people in the council that are being looked at, but what they're saying, it seems to be if they've committed a sexual act, which I always thought that the National Crime Agency were just kind of dealing with everything that the J report covered. So, yeah, it is really disappointing to hear it. I personally feel like they've just been rewarded, all the professionals, you know, they got a payout, they've been sent on their way and that's it. They've not had to deal with anything with us Westerly picking up. Well,
that's the conclusion of the police, that there's insufficient evidence to justify a criminal investigation. So, as I say, we just heard that today.
Sammy, I mean, as you just said there as well, Sis, you and indeed our audience, they loved, actually, people listening to your story, the way that you speak about it, the passion that you have about moving forward. What are your hopes and dreams now? Because this is a new chapter in your life, I would like to think.
Yeah.
What is ahead for you?
I think I'll always kind of in some way be dealing with stuff like this. I am working on something at the minute, but I can't say where it is. But no, I'm excited about that, and I'm just happy to get back into work, really, you know, get back to normality.
Do you have a personal life? Do you have fun? Do you get and do stuff?
I don't have much of a personal life, to be honest. I think because I had my son so young, I've never really been bothered about that social life. So kind of me, you know, I'm with my kids, I'm at work, and that's about it, really. So.
But you're happy?
Yeah, I'm happy, and I'm on the right track.
Good for you. That is lovely. Thank you very much again
Thank you so much.
for chatting with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Sammy Woodhouse.